Hello, it's Gemma Fisher here from Daybreak Dogs in North Somerset, coming to you for the third time actually in the last 15 minutes with today's Friday Fisher Fix. What I found was I did the Friday Fisher Fix about 10-15 minutes or so ago, and in actual fact I had got the mobile phone round the wrong way, so I do apologise. If you've been trying to crane your neck round in order to be able to watch it properly, then fear not. I'm going to go through what I talked about in the previous video again, in order that people don't need to get a crick in their neck, and I'll delete that previous video. So if you are online, if you could just give me a wow for technology is now working, I would really appreciate that, to make sure that I am facing you correctly in your screen. That would be really appreciated. I do actually have up to the right, I do have my laptop, so I'm hoping that between you guys giving me feedback on the video and me having my laptop and Facebook up on here, then I should be able to make sure that I'm coming to you properly. So what were we talking about, Toddy? What did we talk about in the Friday Fish Fix? So what we were looking at, oh, I've got a wow. Thank you for that wow. Is that Mr. Barry Baines? Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Barry. Cheers. So what we talked about last week was the 5 things that I think dogs need to know when we're out and about on a walk. And the first of those 5 things was knowing their name, because I feel like, you know what, if you're going to go out and about with your dog, the very, very, very important thing that your dog needs to know is that when they hear their name, they need to turn and look at you. Now, for my dogs, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to come back, although probably if they didn't hear anything else, it's likely that they would come back. But it certainly means turn and look at me in order that I can give you another cue, another piece of information about what I want you to do next. So, for example, I've been out up to the lovely Goblin Combe, a local woods, with the dogs this afternoon. And you know what? We've come up to a path and maybe sometimes we turn left, sometimes we turn right. I might just have called, hey girls, this way, or Toddy, this way. I know, you know that one, don't you? And you know, it's not a question of you need to come back to me. I just need you to kind of pay attention, because I'm going to give you something else to do. All right. So the very first game that we play is something called the name response game. Now, if you've been to our puppy course, either done the in-person version or you've come on to our online puppy training and you've done it there, then you'll know that lesson 2 of the course is all about teaching what we call the name response game. And it's very, very straightforward. It's about making sure that when your dog hears their name, that they understand that they need to stop and look at you. Now, I like to use, for the purposes of this game, I like to use a clicker. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with clicker training is basically a way of marking a behaviour that you like in the dog, and letting the dog know that not only did you like it, so it's information for the dog, but also that there's promise of a reward coming as well. So in the name response game, the moment I want to mark is when Toddy looks at me. So when he gives me his eyes after he's heard his name, that he turns and he looks at me, ready for the next thing. Isn't that right, my darling? Good boy. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 10 treats, particularly with puppies. I like to start with very short training blocks, and counting out the number of treats that you're going to use is a really great way of limiting your training time. It's also good for maybe dogs that maybe aren't excited yet about training. So if you have a new rescue dog and you're trying to teach them their name and making sure that you get that lovely response, then you'll also keep that training time short in order that the dog starts to get excited about training. Because what you don't want is, you don't want to use a whole packet of treats and the dog's like, oh, you know what, that was fun, but you know, it got boring. You actually want them to stop when they're really excited and they really want to keep going. So I have 10 training treats. I think it's 10. Is it roughly 10? Do you want me to count? Yeah. So we're going to take 10 training treats, and we're going to start off the game by throwing a piece of food away from me in order that Toddy will move away from me to start with. Because as you can see, at the moment, he's looking at me adoringly. It's all about me, not the food at all. So I'm going to throw out the first piece to get him to move away from me. Then I'm going to call his name after he's finished eating that treat. When he looks at me, I'm going to click, and then I'm going to throw out the next piece of food. It's really important that you throw out the food rather than hand feed it, in order that the dog actually moves off again. Builds 2 things. One is excitement for the game. I have excitement for the game here, I think. Excitement for the game, but also it restarts the game each time, as you'll see with Toddy now. All right, so you ready? Toddy? Toddy! Yes, good. Toddy! Good.
you miss one? Did I not quite get you? Did I click a bit early? Toddy!